Love is a beautiful thing. When you find it, the whole world tastes like daffodil daydream. So you gotta hold on to love tight and never let go.
If one spends enough time in any community that discusses art, a list of favorite characters will emerge. This is no less true of Star Wars, a franchise built on countless stories, told through the mediums of movies, games, TV shows, comics, etc. And among all the characters that one can choose, a fan favorite is Jolee Bindo, a Jedi from the game Knights of the Old Republic. From a surface level observation, it would appear that his wisecrack demeanor as a senile old man has made him among one of the most popular Star Wars characters. However, when one examines the reasons for his popularity, it is not primarily his personality that people praise, but rather his philosophy. Unfortunately, the reason for people's attachment to Jolee originates from a misunderstanding of what the character represents and how his life lessons stands against the entirety of the Star Wars setting. The best way to summarize why people love Jolee is that he is humane, in that he displays traits that are humanistic in contrast to the Jedi and Sith. Jolee portrays himself as the wise old man that has experienced enough of life as a Force sensitive in the Star Wars setting to reject the doctrine of the Jedi and Sith and become an alternative. After meeting him on the Wookiee planet Kashyyyk, Jolee joins the party, and the player can learn more about his life experiences through dialogue on the ship. Jolee gives moral lessons and criticizes the teachings of the Jedi Order. Of his criticisms, the one that resonates with people the most is his talk about love.
The Jedi, with their damnable sense of over-caution, would tell you love is something to avoid. Thankfully, anyone who's even partially alive knows that's not true. Love doesn't lead to the dark side. Passion can lead to rage and fear, and can be controlled. But passion is not the same thing as love. Controlling your passions while being in love, that's what they should teach you to beware. But love itself will save you, not condemn you. Love causes pain, certainly. Inevitably, love is going to lead to as much sorrow and regret as it does joy. And how do you deal with the bad part of love is what determines your character. What determines the dark side's hold over you. A life without risk is boring. You want love, you've got to fight for it.
One of the key aspects of both the Jedi and Sith is that neither truly love. The Jedi forbid romantic love and only allow unconditional love towards all of life. And the Sith become so self-absorbed in their quest for power that the possibility of love is never considered, or they inevitably lose their loved ones in the process of acquiring power. Unlike both ideologies, Jolee speaks of how it feels to be in love and fight for it, something that people intuitively know is lacking in both the Jedi and Sith. Innate to all humans, love is a strong, emotionally intimate relationship that combines an intense valuing of a partner on the deepest level and enjoyment of life with that partner. It is, in a general sense, a deeper personal attachment to another living being based on who they are and how much they matter to you. However, more than just preaching that love is grand, what makes Jolee important in the context of Star Wars is his declaration that love does not condemn you. From a meta-narrative perspective, this declaration is a statement on the entirety of the Star Wars setting. Jolee argues that it is not love that is corruptive, but rather the intensity of one's passions that leads a Force sensitive to turn to the dark side. The Jedi are wrong for being overly protective by rejecting attachments. The game does not merely present his position as a potential point of view, but it holds that it is, to some extent, correct. If the player is male and romances Bastila, picking through the light side path near the end of the game, Jolee's words are vindicated. You can turn back Bastila from the dark side by the power of love. The problem is that this contradicts the structure of Star Wars, including events present in Knights of the Old Republic itself. If the player chooses a female character, they can romance Karf, but when given the choice between the light side and dark side ending, they can choose the dark side, and Karf will attempt numerous times to save you from this evil chosen path, just as the player did while playing the male light side route with Bastila. However, it doesn't work. The game ends with you destroying the Republic. Karf begs one final time for you to turn back to the light, and your only dialogue options are to kill him. In that route, love does not save anyone. Even worse, the perspective of love saving anyone is opposed by Jolee's own life experiences. If you talk to Jolee, he reveals his past of going on adventures, finding a woman that was strong in the Force, falling in love with her, and then training her in secret. But she was swayed by Exar Kun's promises of a grand future for the Jedi and turned to the dark side. After Jolee rejected her offer to join her, she and Jolee fought, and he defeated her. But as a result of his intense love for her, he was unable to kill her, and no amount of love was able to bring her back from the dark side. As much as Knights of the Old Republic wants to argue otherwise, love does not save anyone in Star Wars. And, in truth, it continually condemns Force sensitives. The most obvious example is in Revenge of the Sith, where Padme begs Anakin to turn away from his path. It did not save him, and Anakin ended up killing her. The single counterexample people cite of love saving anyone is at the end of Return of the Jedi, where Luke's love of his father seemingly saved him. What people always forget is that Luke never had a positive personal attachment with his father, and so what Luke felt was not personal love, but unconditional love. In Star Wars, loving unconditionally does not mean to love someone with such intensity that one would do anything for them, but to love all of life, equally, without immediate personal attachment.
Attachment is forbidden. Possession is forbidden. Compassion, which I would define as unconditional love, is central to a Jedi's life.
Hence, there are two types of love relevant to Star Wars. Love built on attachment and valuing a partner for whom they are and how much they matter to you, or selfless, compassionate love where one loves all of life without distinction. Luke held an attachment to his sister and his friends, and so was afraid to lose them, and it almost made him fall to the dark side. But when he let go of his hate and held selfless, compassionate love for his father, Anakin returned his compassionate love by sacrificing himself, thus saving his son and everyone else. On a surface level, it might seem that personal attachments are what saved the day, that Luke's connection to his father is what redeemed him. But Lucas emphasizes that giving up one's life by being selfless and compassionate is what saved the galaxy. In the making of Star Wars: Revenge of the Sith, Lucas states, "It really has to do with learning. Children teach you compassion. They teach you to love unconditionally. Anakin can't be redeemed for all the pain and suffering he's caused. He can't right the wrongs, but he stops the horror. The end of the saga is simply Anakin saying, 'I care about this person, regardless of what it means to me. I will throw everything I have, everything I've grown to love, primarily the Emperor, and throw away my life to save this person. And I'm doing this because he has faith in me, loves me despite all the horrible things I've done. I broke his mother's heart, and he still cares about me, and I can't let that die.' Anakin is very different in the end. The thing of it, the prophecy was right. Anakin was the chosen one, and he does bring balance to the Force. He takes the ounce of good still left in him and destroys the Emperor out of compassion for his son. This emphasis on compassion is the core of the Jedi teachings that forbid forming attachments because they make an individual greedy and induce the fear of loss."
Your thoughts dwell on your mother.
I miss her.
Afraid to lose her, I think.
What has that got to do with anything?
Everything. Fear is the path to the dark side.
He is to be trained then?
No, he will not be trained. He is too old.
He's formed a strong attachment to you. You cannot train him.
What? Why not?
His attachment to you makes him vulnerable to his fears. His anger.
All the more reason to train him.
I've seen what such feelings can do to a fully trained Jedi Knight. To the best of us. I will not start this child down that path.
Attachment leads to jealousy. The shadow of greed, that is.
Many argue that the Jedi teachings must be wrong, believing something similar to Jolee's perspective, that the Jedi should teach how to control one's passions rather than to outright reject being in love. But it is deeper than that. The Jedi teach to let go of all attachments so as to circumvent the desire to obtain power for its own sake. As Lucas explains in The Making of Star Wars: Revenge of the Sith, no human can let go. Lucas would say of the Yoda-Anakin scene, "It is very hard. Ultimately, we do let go because it is inevitable. You do die and you do lose your loved ones. But while you're alive, you can't be obsessed with holding on, because holding on is in the same category and the precursor to greed. And that's what a Sith is. A Sith is someone that is absolutely obsessed with gaining more and more power. But for what? Nothing, except that it becomes an obsession to get more. The very essence of human nature, interacting with others, having selfish preferences through personal attachments rather than compassionate love for all of life, and seeking to maintain those attachments that give pleasure, is treated as an ever-present threat and certainty that leads to becoming evil. And it compels the Jedi Order to be overly cautious by training Force sensitives at a young age to never form attachments. As Lucas again states in The Making of Star Wars: Revenge of the Sith, the Jedi are trained to let go. They're trained from birth, he continues. They're not supposed to form attachments. They can love people. In fact, they should love everybody. They should love their enemies. They should love the Sith, but they can't form attachments. So what all these movies are about is greed. Greed is the source of pain and suffering for everybody. And the ultimate state of greed is the desire to cheat death. It is the reason why let go is the main theme of Star Wars. Force sensitives are born with power and must never be selfish. They must let go of their attachments to have compassion for all of life, so that they never misuse their power. What makes Jolee tragic is that, like all humans, he knows innately that love is valuable, because he experienced it firsthand. But while he desperately wishes that love shouldn't condemn you, in the Star Wars galaxy, it does. And for all his talk about embracing love, supposedly offering an alternative to the Jedi and Sith, Jolee's life choices go against his philosophy. After the defeat of Exar Kun and learning of his wife's death, Jolee was put on trial but was absolved of all wrongdoing by the Jedi Council. Feeling betrayed and hating that wherever he went, people sought to manipulate him for their own ends, Jolee chose to live as a hermit on Kashyyyk for 20 years, cowardly becoming an apathetic Jedi. Over the years, many have objected to the labeling of Jolee as apathetic or cowardly. He has lines where he explains that he would have provided help to local Wookiees that were lost in the Shadowlands. However, these small acts of kindness pale in comparison to doing nothing as the Zerka Corporation enslaved the entire Wookiee population. You can ask him, why didn't he help the Wookiees? And Jolee gives an evasive answer. Consequently, you can also ask why didn't he use his power to be king, to which he again gives an evasive answer. His stance is made overt if you press him further and pick the option that directly calls him out as a coward. If you do, he embraces the label. Despite Jolee's humanistic beliefs, he refused to form meaningful attachments with life, and instead chose to live an existence that was hardly better than death. From a certain point of view, between the choices of the Jedi and Sith, it is reasonable to argue that perhaps living apathetically is a better alternative. If being Force sensitive is a rigged game, where you have to choose to be selfless and hold compassionate love without any personal attachments, or be able to be human and experience short-lived selfishness that has a high risk of corrupting a Force sensitive and fall to the dark side, perhaps Jolee's decision to be apathetic was the correct choice. Unfortunately, it isn't, because
apathy is death.
Jolee wasted 2 decades of his life as a hermit, living as a rock, waiting to die. Why? Although Jolee never explains, the statement on letting the Wookiees mess up their own history implies that he does not want to use the Force in a way that will impact the Wookiees. he does not want to carry the burden of wielding the Force as it creates unforeseen consequences or corrupts the self if misused. From his point of view, he has no other choice. He was born Force sensitive. To have the ability to use the Force is a curse that condemns the person to never live a normal life or to experience love long term. To Jolee, living apathetically is the only possible alternative that allows him to remain himself. Ultimately, Jolee understood the flaws of the Jedi and Sith. The Jedi must become inhuman for the sake of the galaxy, and the Sith are the result of never letting go of attachments. At the same time, he recognized the human need for attachments and love, and that it is worth fighting for, but lacked the insight to see that what prevents all Force sensitive from being able to be human and experience love is one's attachment to the Force itself. In Knights of the Old Republic 2, Kreia criticizes the apathy of the Jedi Master Zez-Kai-El, and, by proxy, Jolee's refusal of letting go of the Force.
And Zez-Kai-El, to hide upon Nar Shaddaa, yet blind yourself to all that happens there. So close to understanding the Force. So close to giving it up.
Jolee might have left the Jedi Order, but he still bore the responsibility of never forming any attachments. By living apathetically, he remained as inhuman as the Jedi he so criticized and shared in their suffering. This torment is why the exile from the game Knights of the Old Republic 2 is so important. They are the only character in all of Star Wars to let go of the Force so completely, so utterly, that they were able to live without their attachment to the Force and obtain the freedom to be in love. That is the correct choice and true alternative to the Jedi and Sith. The tragedy of Jolee is that he never came to such a conclusion, and ultimately never had the chance to genuinely live his life after the death of his wife. If love is worth fighting for, as Jolee rightfully preaches, then it is worth giving up the Force to be happy. What is important to recognize is that Jolee is correct to say that love is worth fighting for, and people are right to love him for it. But within the universe of Star Wars, due to the nature of the Force and the risk of the dark side, the Jedi are ultimately right to forbid attachments. Jolee Bindo's popularity is more than his humanistic lessons and criticisms of the Jedi philosophy. He is the precursor to Kreia for realizing that the Jedi and Sith ideologies are inhuman and lack love. But he failed to recognize that their philosophies only exist in the form they do because they are built upon the axiomatic fact that the Force destroys human nature. And the Star Wars setting itself is evil for preaching that love condemns people to their doom.
In Star Wars, there's a very obvious theme of the apprentice and the mentor. What ideas do you think it's important that we pass on to children going into adulthood?
The core thing to pass on, in talking about religion, is all religions say one thing, basically, which is love is the secret to the universe, which is compassion, which is love others, take care of others, help each other. Well, that's about all it comes down to. It's not very hard. It's hard to live by, but it's not very hard to know, and it's not very hard to realize that every single prophet, every single religion, always comes down to the same thing. The Force, the religion, and everything is based on all religions. It's not just based on one. The struggle in Star Wars is about passion against compassion, which is greed against giving and giving up, primarily. And the whole issue is the flip side of greed is fear of losing. So you're either trying to get things or you're afraid of losing the things that you've got. And the idea is that to let go of those things.
Look back at history. Look at any great system of ethics from the Orient up. Didn't they all preach the sacrifice of personal joy? Under all the complications of verbiage, haven't they all had a single leitmotif? Sacrifice, renunciation, self-denial. Haven't you been able to catch their theme song? Give up, give up, give up, give up.